Welcome to the Indie Podcast. Today's conversation is a very human one about how quickly life can change and what happens afterwards. In December 2025, Beverly suffered a huge, massive heart attack, an experience that understandably stopped life in its tracks and forced her to look at things very differently. In this episode, we talk honestly about health, perspective, time, priorities, and the strange clarity that can sometimes arrive with a major life event. I think many of us carry on assuming that there will always be more time later. And Beverly's story is a reminder that sometimes life gives us a sharp nudge to rethink what really matters. So here's my conversation with Beverly. Hello, Beverly. And thank you
Hello,
for joining
Andrew.
us
How are you?
on the Indie Podcast. Now, I think you have one hell of a story and a lot of really incredible insights for indies. And I'm hoping you don't mind me taking you back to the 30th of December last year,
Yup,
where everything was hunky dory, I suppose.
it
And
was.
you were going along, great career, you know, great life. And then what happened?
Right. I can take you back a little further than that, Andrew,
Okay,
which was for your listeners, which was in March
right.
of 25, because my children had just left home. My younger daughter had become a lot more settled. She was
Mhm.
25. My eldest daughter is works some fantastic job in the NHS looking after people that have had strokes. She's a speech and language therapist. And Susie, my youngest daughter, sings opera, but she's decided to fly around the world for a little while. So they had flown the nest, if you like, and I had horrendous empty nest. And this isn't the first time I've had empty nest, because they've already left once and come back, which was lockdown. And then one went traveling and came back. So I had to go through it again. So this was my third um blap, if you like, of empty nest, and it really hit home. And the reason for that is because I've brought my children up on my own for 18 years. So with nobody else involved, and we're a very tight three. And I know that we've spoken about this before, but I'd sort of lost a bit of purpose in that, because I absolutely loved being their mummy.
Yeah.
So all the extra mummy bits I got was great, but also I had obviously my own life to put back together, and that was quite tough. So I decided to take matters into my own hands, and I'd set up a business the same month, which was for international guardianship for children coming to UK schools. I've got my other businesses on board, so I have, for your listeners, a very portfolio career. And so I decided I was going to get fit. So that's what I did. So I started going to the gym, and did some boxing, and I went back to swimming, because I used to swim for a ladies swimming team in East Devon many years ago, and I love swimming. And I'm a bit of a mermaid in the summer in the sea. So it was a case then of swim, gym, boxing, getting out there, getting on my bike, and telling everybody else about it. So I got up to 30 lengths in the pool, cycling, got myself a pair of padded shorts because I thought that was a good idea. And off I went, £18 lighter, ended up at Christmas, basically. So, but in that time, I'd been feeling a bit unwell on occasions, and had been along to the doctors, and on one occasion I'd actually taken myself to A&E, because I just was feeling a little bit unwell after a meeting. So on the 29th of December, I took myself to the doctors, because I got up in the morning feeling a bit unwell again. So I made an appointment, went in. I had a bit of a cough, nothing else particularly, just very lightheaded, and a little bit breathless. So we take into considerations, we ladies, things like menopause, anxiety. I spin a lot of plates, Andrew, as you
Yeah.
know, and all of the above. So they gave me some antibiotics and said, it's New Year coming up. If it gets worse, this cough, just take these tablets, chest infection is what was written. And at midnight that evening, which was the 30th, I was sitting on my settee, And what happened was something that I can only describe as being hit by a bus at 60 miles an hour. It was a complete wham. It was a complete stop. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get a breath. I felt sick. I felt ill, lightheaded, like I was going to faint, sort of in and out of blacking out, and sort of pulled myself together, stood up, held onto my dresser and thought, I'm really not well, I'm going to go to bed. So I went to bed for an hour, but not asleep. I took some paracetamols as well. And in all this time, Andrew, I'd got 1% of my heart working. I'd had a massive heart attack, basically.
Yes.
So that 1% kept me alive because of my fitness. And that's the message that I wanted to bring to your conversation today. If I hadn't been as fit as I was at my age, and I am over 60, as you know, I wouldn't have survived that, not at all. So I phoned 111, said, I think I'm in trouble, gave them a few symptoms, one of which was that I'd been quite sick. And they said, what was that like? And I said, the only way I can describe this sickness was like coffee grains. And I said, and I haven't had anything coffee grain looking like, and he said that's to do with some internal bleeding, and I was having a heart attack. So within 20 minutes there was an ambulance there from 111. They put on the pads, the shock pads. I could pretty much see on the ECG on the floor, which is where I was sitting at the time downstairs, that this wasn't looking good. It was pretty flat. And they sprayed all sorts of stuff in my mouth, made me chew a load of aspirins and said, we need to go. Very undignified. I walked with no heart pretty much to the ambulance and was blue lighted into the hospital. And as soon as I got there, there was a team of cardiology people ready to take me into a theatre situation. And then came the line, we need to phone a relative, we need to phone your nearest relative. And I said, what are we doing? They said, we're going to see what we can do. And it was at that moment, Andrew, which we said was the oh shit moment, when I thought I wasn't going to make it. And I said, am I going to die? And the cardiologist said, not if we can help it, but we're going to see what we can do. And I was absolutely terrified. There was a guy who I've never met before on my left-hand side called Colin. He was one of the team, and he stayed with me the whole time, held my hand because I said how frightened I was. And me being me and making a joke out of it was, he said, how much morphine has Beverly had? And he said 5 milligrams. He said, can we give her 10? I said, what are we doing? Dying happy or laughing? It's just a case. And he said, I just want you to relax. So I could see a screen on my left. There was obviously a camera above me, and he'd inserted a cannula in my wrist, which was taking some balloons into my heart to pump it up, basically, and then to fit some stents, which I now know are £2,500 each, Andrew. So I've got a pretty expensive heart going on here. So he couldn't get one in, so they tried another one. It was a nightmare. And the upshot of that was I was very poorly. And so 2 hours later, I was in a ward, attached to a million things, wondering what the hell had happened. This wasn't my life at all.
No,
and just what am I going to do from here? How do I get out of this one? I've got myself out of some pretty sharp scrapes in my life, but this was like pretty serious. And at that point, I didn't know what was going to happen.
This was the last thing that you expected.
Exactly. Absolutely. The absolutely last thing. I didn't know what I was thinking. I was in a bit of shock, if actually. And I was in a lot of discomfort because where they put the pads on, they'd had to rip them off pretty quickly to get me into theatre. So I got, just quite uncomfortable, physically, and mentally was just completely shot. And I'm quite a strong person, and I think that's what got me into the ambulance in the first place. But the words that she said to me in the ambulance, there was a lady in one drive-in, and they said, "Did they give you an ECG in the doctors today?" And I said, "No." They said, "We need to keep doing this. We've got to keep doing it till we get to the hospital, just for try and relax." Blah, 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 blah. And she said to me, "You are having a massive heart attack." And because I don't think she actually realised that I was taking it all on board, because it just wasn't me. So for your listeners, it's a case of don't ignore symptoms. Women present very differently than men with heart attacks. And the only thing that I'd had, Andrew, was some sort of jiggly arms, if you like, sort of feeling a bit numb. Like if you've carried heavy shopping for a long time, because we know how we like shopping, we ladies. So, when your arms go a bit wobbly, a bit like that. Bit short of breath, and pretty much nothing else. That was it. Those were my symptoms I'd had, but it was just the impact. This impact, I had no idea what it was, but I'm thinking in my head it's a chest infection because that's what I've been told, and of course it was much more serious than that. And unfortunately, because of some medication that I've taken since the 30th, hasn't agreed with me as a 5'2" woman, because they test it out on 6'2" men like yourself, and some of the medication that they gave me made me quite poorly, so it's taken a while to get that down. So I have had 5 inpatient stays this year, courtesy of the NHS, and I'm very grateful. And the comments have always been from each of the consultants that I've seen: "Do you know how lucky you are to be alive?" So with this,
yes,
is responsibility, isn't it? What am I supposed to do with this? Why was I given a second chance? Why did 2 of my friends, I lost 2 of my friends in January with a heart attack, two of my business connections, and people that I've known for 30 years. And I didn't, I made it. Therefore, I have a responsibility to make people aware about health, I think, is what I'm thinking. So that's what happened, Andrew, and pretty shocking, hey,
it is.
literally.
Do you think most of us quietly, seriously believe that serious things like this just happen to other people and not us?
Well, the best line I think I've heard this week, because I was talking with a group of business
Yeah.
people at Bournemouth University about health and leadership strategy, actually, is "Your body is not a dustbin." And, we've all lived through the 70s, 80s and 90s of alcohol, smoking, eating, a Happy Meal or whatever people have, which is their sort of fast food of choice, if you like, or Kentucky Fried Chicken or whatever it is. I've never actually done any of that, and don't actually like the taste of it, if I'm honest. But I didn't even have a McDonald's till I was in my late 30s, I think, when I'd had my children. So it's just a case of, we cannot treat our house, which is our body, as a tip. We've got to look after it, and I'd done that. I decided I was going to get back to the fitness that I used to have, and that was the best thing, the best investment.
For you, so that was your get out of jail free card, really, wasn't it?
It was absolutely. And I know that because the other 2 friends that I have that I actually lost in January weren't fit people.
No. So having that gone, has your relationship with time changed? Realizing that it could have been very much the end. And I won't ask the question as how long do you think you've got, but do you find you're looking at time differently?
Tell you what I do look at differently is everything, is colour, the time,
Yeah.
my what I'm doing, how I feel. Am I tired? Do I need to stop? How's my head? Because I still wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning thinking, Am I awake?
Yeah.
But I think that's one of those things that everybody goes through. I've been along to a clinic to talk a cardiology
Yeah.
rehabilitation clinic, and there are other people who say they feel the same, which is good because
Yeah.
that means there's other people that feel the same. But yes, I have a very different relationship with myself,
Hmm.
and I have a very different relationship with what's going on in time. So both of my parents are in their 90s, and both of them have had heart problems. And my dad's aunt, actually died when she was 111. So when I spoke to the cardiologist who saved my life, I said, "What's my life
Yeah.
expectancy, John?" And he said, "How old are your parents?" And I said, "Well, they're in their 90s." And he said, "Well, you've got a coronary heart condition, but you've got longevity genes." So he said, even if, I mean, I can't even think about it because that's not my life. But this is not ever forever. This is
Yeah.
not a forever thing. I had the absolute rug pulled under my feet
Yeah.
in a way that I can't even explain to somebody else. But I want to share it because people need to know that this is not forever. Your journey comes to an end. And in that time, you and I both know, because we talk about it a lot, is what we can do in between those times to make things better for us and for those people that are around us. So green's greener. The sunny, shiny sky
Yeah.
is warmer, and if I don't feel very well, tired, have a headache, I stop.
I was just going to say, is there anything now that, is just no for you, or do you do less now because you've decided, actually, it's just not worth it?
Rushing around.
Hmm.
If you get up at the right time, you
Yeah.
don't need to rush. If I'm going to be late, I just let people know now. I say, "I'm really sorry, I can't rush." But I think because people understand what's happening to me, I don't want to be treated any differently because it's still Bev. But what people do need to understand is that my head is in a very different space than a lot of other people's, I think now.
Well, that's what I was
Um,
kind of interested, because
yeah,
you've kind of had that oh shit moment.
yeah,
Um, you know, there must have been a point where, you thought, is this it? Is it going to
yeah,
stop?
yeah. I did. That was exactly where I was when she said to me, "You are having a massive heart attack." And I said, "Am I going to die?" And she said, "I don't know. We're going to see what we can do." And it was just, I can't. That's not me. I'm resilient. Mentally tough.
Yeah, yeah.
Have had a military operation with my children every day of my life for the last 26 years. This is not my life. And but at no stage did my head think that was it. But I knew in my heart, pretty much because I could feel it,
Yeah.
that it was, that this could have ended up very differently. And I am very grateful for John Rawlins, and I'm very grateful to be here to tell you the tale. But reflecting, and what I have done
Mm.
since then is changed a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to move house because um, my business overheads are whopping.
Hmm.
And I thought, why am I putting myself under that much pressure when I can move out of this house into another house that's not going to cost me as much money to live there every month? And also, do I really need to have all those things
Hmm.
in my life now, like Sky Telly and everything else that costs like hundreds of pounds every month? And I've actually, in the last month, reduced my overheads by half.
Wow.
Yeah, that's massive for me. So when we're talking massive, we're talking like, if I say before I got out of bed, £4,000 a month,
Hmm.
now I've halved that. And that includes all my business expenses for myself, like petrol, the places I
Yeah.
go, accommodation, whatever, if I'm staying on the Isle of Wight, example, to see clients, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I've halved what I've done. But I absolutely was exhausted at the end of that move because I wasn't really ready to do it, but I
No.
wasn't going to wait. That's the importance, I think, is not waiting. Do it now.
And it sounds like it's been a huge turning point for you.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Reflecting.
I what would you say is the biggest thing that you've actually realized coming through this kind of whole period of time?
Okay. That actually came to me this week when I was doing
Yeah.
this talk about leadership strategy at Being Health. And, you know, it's not an aesthetic thing. You've got to be well. Otherwise, you don't be a good husband, a good wife, a good mum, dad, boss. You know, you don't make the good decisions. And if you don't sleep properly, and what came out of that this week um, is you've got to look after yourself. You need to stop and think what you're doing, and do you actually really need to do that, or what would you prefer to do? So I want to now, I don't know if that answers the question, but I want to play to my own strengths now, and I'm sort of coming up with a new plan of action where I can use the skills that I've got, but not in the same way, maybe in a different way. But what I did learn from this week is I have copied off what people have written underneath a post that I wrote on my social media. And there's 20 comments that I've kept that I'm going to talk about in my next talk, which says things like, you are so brave and honest.
Mm.
Your resilience is incredible. You are such a strong woman. We are all so inspired. Somebody said the young women in that room, Beverly, were sitting with them, you know, in awe of what you've achieved. But to me, it's just my life. So when I go, oh, I used to be a director of a P&O company and I'm a multi-exit entrepreneur. You know, to me, it's just the life I've lived. And for other people looking in from the outside, they're going, wow, look what she's achieved. If she's done that, so can I. But in what my message was is you can all do that, but you've got to look after yourself.
And I think a lot of us, I'd like to go on and talk on you know, you've spoken about actually sharing some of these things, but a lot of us just don't do it. We think about it.
Yeah.
And you obviously have had that moment of time where, you know, it's come in and it's been an oh shit moment. And most of us will, you know, jolly along, eating our occasional McDonald's. I'm just kind of interested in what you might say to help the poor mortals like me who you know, will slip myself a few slices of buttered toast and have the occasional burger.
Absolutely, but so will I. But
Yeah,
what I will also do is I have to take quite a lot of medication
yeah,
now for a year at least. And also things that I didn't want to take, like statins,
yeah,
blood thinners, things
yeah.
to stop my heart stents blocking up. And it's just a constant mouth of tablets at the moment, which is so not me either, you know.
No.
But in taking those, I realised that I've got to look after myself. So now that they've told me at my clinic that I can actually go back to swimming, it's the best thing I've ever heard. I can't tell you, because I just love being in the water. But I won't be able to get in and do 30 lengths. I've got to do one at a time,
But
you know?
that's really interesting because that's kind of the flip side, isn't it? You know, that there is the sort of being cautious about health and making sure, but there's also, you know, the keep living life, and that's what I'm getting from you. You know,
Yeah.
you're determined to live life. So
Yes, I'm not stopping, and I'd quite like a new life actually, because you know I've made all these changes now for the better. I'm hoping the
yeah,
universe has taken note, and I bought a lottery ticket, just so you know,
yeah,
and you know, and it would be fantastic if over the next, let's say, 5 or 6 years, that I can create something of a bit of a legacy from this,
mm,
or to talk to other people about it, so that you know, our modern lives, which is sitting on our bottoms,
yeah, yeah,
scrolling videos, you know, having a binge on a Saturday, let's say, or half a bottle of wine, or whatever it is, or the odd cigarette, or whatever people do, because nobody's ever an ex-smoker, a non-smoker, they're always an ex-smoker.
yeah,
And this is something else that I've spoken to people about as well, because what the message that I've got from this right from the start is smoking causes heart disease, you know. And when I'd got 40 Marlboro in an ashtray in London, in the city, you know, back in the day when I was working, you know, in that industry, nobody even thought about it. You know, we used to have doctors on the telly in the 60s, didn't they, with a cigarette saying, buy Camel, you know, this doctor smokes Camel, you know, and things like that. And we grew up with this, didn't we? So it's it's all of those things really, but it's just thinking about and reflecting on for me now what's happened and how I can help and share that with other people. So I took a blood pressure machine with me to a talk this week, and I said, if anybody would like me to take their blood pressure, it's the first place that you should be thinking about. And in a room of 40, two came.
Wow.
Two. And because I think there's also this thing, isn't there, Andrew? We don't want to know.
We don't want to know.
I don't want to know.
I find that interesting, these conversations that we avoid having because we don't want to know about mortality.
Yeah. You live in a house that you know nothing about.
Yeah.
So when I say, you know, do you know about your pancreas, what it actually does? We go, no. You know, do you know how many times you should chew your food before you swallow it? No. It's like, I taught health for 10 years. I lectured in health. I've had 3 careers, business, education and business. And in the education bit, I actually lectured in health studies and like developmental psychology early years. So, that was why my children were growing up, so I could have the school holidays on Bournemouth Beach, basically. But the point being there is that you need to understand and listen to what's going on. And, you know, and I'd been doing that. I'd been saying, I don't feel very well, actually. And it had been given lots of other names rather than the actual one that it was. Well, but I couldn't do anything about that because I was saying it out loud, you know. So don't stop. Be your own advocate. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't.
That's a really good piece of advice. Do you think we spend far too much time preparing financially for our later life, you know, and we don't spend enough time looking after our health and our emotional state?
Yeah, I think that's the case because, you know, everybody wants to belong. Everybody, you know, we're just humans at the end of the day. We're just a little part of the ecosystem, aren't we? Like flowers, dogs, you know, little ants. We're all just part of that ecosystem that we've been given. What actually brought it home to me was on the recent space exploration, there was the 4 astronauts in the spaceship, and there was a lady, and I can't remember what her name is at the moment, but she said the biggest thing I saw was I looked out the window and I could see Earth. And she said, my biggest takeaway was the blackness that was around it. It's that. It's just like we are just hanging in a space, Andrew. And in that space that we're hanging, it's our responsibility, just like the earth and sustainability, recycling your bottles and everything else, is to look after that little house, and that's your body, and you need to do the same. So if you know that you've had, like I love toast butter and apricot jam and stuff like that, is if I've had 2 pieces already today and I need something to eat, I go and eat some cottage cheese. Do you know what I mean? I don't like go and eat the same 10 things.
So, sort of wrapping up a little bit, if this oh shit experience has taught you one thing about being alive, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, I can think of a million. Oh gosh.
Well, I'll take them all.
My children came the very next day. My daughter came before the next day, and it was just like, they're the most important thing is your family, those people that are closest to you. The impact that this has had on them is massive because I'm it for them. You know, we've got a very tiny family, and my eldest daughter and I are very close. My youngest daughter and I have a great fun relationship. It's totally different with both of them. And my eldest daughter took total responsibility to look after me and take me out, make sure I had a walk in the first week, you know, just round the block and back, because I couldn't walk. I was so poorly. So I've pushed myself to get back to this point of where I am now, which is nearly 5 months. I'm still not well because I'm tired quite a lot, but that will get better. And it's my responsibility to do that. So takeaways are you've got to live your truth. You've got to live your truth and be true to you. And love those that are closest to you, and do your best for them. Look after the house that you've been given to live in, this little body. And Andrew, this is not forever. And that's a scary point. But I don't want it to be scary for everybody. I want people to sort of go, yep, okay, I've got to sort my pension out for the rest, sometime. I've got to find out how much money I've got to live on now. I want to carry on working, which is us because we are indies. And, what is it that I want to do is to make a plan. Make yourself a strategy, make some meal plans, make some fun times. If somebody says no, ask why. I've had that this week and I thought, I could just let it go. But no, I'm not. I'm going to ask, no, why? Why did you say no? Because I know that I could do that, and following up on things as well, making sure that you do what you say you're going to do. I think that's important. And because I've had to take some time out, I feel very much that I've got to now, sort of let people have what they were supposed to get from me, either whether that was an hour of my time or a day or whatever it was, is I'm now putting all that back together again. So is to be true to yourself, I think, and do the right thing by others. And I know this is the whole thing of treat yourself as you would treat others, I think. And I always try to do that thing, always try to be kind and thoughtful and giving if I can. But you've also got to look after yourself. You've got to look after that. You've got to make a plan. You can't just expect it to happen. And, both of my parents are in care now. I think it's thousands and thousands of pounds a month. That's their whole life savings. They have saved and looked after their money all of their life. And now it's given them a comfortable end of life. But not everybody has that. Not everybody has it. So you need a proper plan forward. Wasn't my daughter's work to clean out 26 years of boxes in my garage. That was my job, So that's what I've done. I've tried to create space like planet Earth hanging in the darkness, Try to create a space around me to work in a bit better.
So last question, having come so close to the end, what does being truly alive mean to you right now?
Oh my gosh, I just love being in the fresh air and outside and in the countryside, which is where I've moved to. So being alive right now is that the sunset I saw yesterday, or my daughters, that's truly alive. I just want to the best for them, really, and to share this experience so that nobody else has to go through what I went through, to listen to your body. And that's like my sort of end of, if you like. It isn't forever, and you've got to make a plan. There has to be a plan out, and I've started making that plan out now, because God forbid, you didn't the first time, but if you did the second time, at least my garage is sorted out.
One way of looking at it. Thank you very much, Beverly, for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. That's okay. I'm always here to talk to if anybody wants to chat.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Indie Podcast with Beverley Poole. I hope this conversation has encouraged you to pause for a moment and think about your own life and your priorities and what matters most to you now, not someday in the future. If you'd like to be part of more conversations like this around life, purpose, work, identity, and navigating what I often call the dangerous decade, come and join the indie community at imnotdoneyet.org. You'll also find more about our work, projects, and ideas at imnotdoneyet.com. And wherever you're listening, please do follow, subscribe, share the podcast. It really does help us grow the community and reach more people who need to hear these stories. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.